gonna be well.
So here's the audio amplifier, and I think it's finished, and I want to say I think because I don't want to jinx it. And the reason I took so long to put this up is because I had one hell of an adventure with this thing. So first of all, we discovered that one of these transistors was bad. So I ended up getting replacements, and as replacements, I found that TIP31C, TIP31C was a good match for these. The originals were D234. So I found that TIP31C was a good replacement. I put them in. They worked totally fine. Well, actually, the first time I put them in, they didn't work fine, and then I swapped them back and forth with the originals or something, and then it worked fine, and then I played it for a while, and then the next morning it stopped working fine, and then I put, I went back and forth like that. It would work fine, and I would play it, and then it would stop working fine. It would overheat like crazy. And so after lots of experimenting, going back and forth, I ended up figuring out that this thing doesn't like many replacement transistors on this channel right here. For whatever reason, this channel over here, which is the, what channel is that? I believe that's the left channel. I forgot which of these is which. But this channel over here worked totally fine no matter what transistors I put in it. This one's really touchy. I don't know why, like maybe it's the way it's laid out or some weird property, just whatever it might be. But basically it kept oscillating. When I put the TIP31C, what would happen was whenever I touched the collector on this one, it would start oscillating, or whenever I turned up the volume slightly. So then I found some 2SD880s on a junk chassis, and I put them in here, and basically the same thing, although a little bit more subtle. And this time it was oscillating in such a way that I could hear white noise through the speaker. It was almost like it was picking up radio frequency or something like that. So it was just boggling my mind, because whatever transistors I put over here worked fine, so I kept figuring it wasn't the transistor's fault, it was something else, So I ended up recapping everything here. I even changed all of basically every single part except the emitter collector resistors here are the only thing I didn't change. Every single part I changed, and it was still not working. So what I ended up having to do is I ended up having to put the original transistors on this side. The ones that were over here, I moved them over here, and that's the only way it worked. And over here I put two SD880s. Like I said, this channel over here works fine with whatever I throw at it. This one, it had to be the original transistors. The reason that I'm kind of unhappy about that is that these transistors which were on this side, as you remember, both of these trimmer pots were bad on both channels. So these were overheating from bad idle current to high idle current for years. So they're very overheated, who knows how long those trimmer pots had been open. So they withstood a lot of heat, and the voltage drop in the junctions is a little bit too low, and I don't really know if they're going to last very long. But I mean, that's the only way I could get this thing to work for whatever reason. But I mean, it's working. Again, I don't even want to say that, because I said that so many times before, and then next time I powered it on, it stopped working. But that seems to be the only thing that made it happy. Over here I changed the output cap just to sort of even it out, because I had it anyway. And the other thing is the original ones were rated at 25 volts, and B plus on this thing is 30 volts or so. So if this ever shorted, it would send 30 plus volts directly into the capacitor, and I just wanted, just for the heck of it. I think originally maybe the B plus on this thing used to be like 25 volts or a little bit lower maybe. Maybe it was designed at a time where the line voltage was a little bit lower, I'm not sure. But anyway, there's the audio amp. I didn't record all the crap that I did because it was so frustrating that I just didn't feel like recording anything, and I just kind of went through it. I have some clips and pieces here and there of the process and the troubleshooting, but for the most part I didn't shoot anything, so I might attach that to this video. I'm not really sure. The other thing I did was I replaced all the driver transistors on both channels, because again, I think the B plus was originally a little bit lower or something, or maybe it's just bad design, but the original transistors were rated at a maximum voltage of about 30 volts. 30 volts, yeah. And so I mean that's basically what the B plus voltage is, and considering that this thing isn't regulated, you know, it's going to go higher than that. I'm not sure how they actually made it totally fine up until now, because they were all okay, except when I blew the transistors here on one occasion, it finally ended up killing the driver transistors on this channel. But I mean, I just ended up replacing even the ones over here just in case, you know. The ones here don't get that high voltage, so they're okay. And I replaced them with what is that? I think they're MPS A05 and MPS A55, which are NPN PNP complements, and they're pretty good substitutes, and they work perfectly. So let me just give you a close-up of everything here. All the caps are replaced. I ended up putting the original back here because the replacement I put in there, at one point I thought it was bad. You know, I was going back and forth with all the crap I was having with this thing, so on one occasion I ended up damaging the original, but since I had already proved the caps weren't the cause of anything, I put the original back in there. It's fine. But yeah, I just recapped it because it was giving me such a headache that I just wanted to eliminate every single possible, you know, fault in this thing. And yeah, even the resistors and everything. I had just completely run out of ideas. I replaced everything. I ended up putting this red one back here. I'd put a green one here at one point. But yeah, I was out of ideas, so I just kind of went divide and conquer. And I was being stubborn because I really wanted it to be something else besides the transistors. Again, considering the transistors that kept failing here would work fine over here. So, you know, I just kept thinking that wasn't the problem. But let me just give you a quick tour of what this thing looks like. I ended up cleaning it really nice. Sorry, it's kind of dark. These sides are mostly original except for this guy and the trimmer pot and the driver transistors. That side's kind of dirty still. Originally this didn't have any thermal paste behind the transistors. I put some in there. Should help it cool off a little bit better. So I'm just setting up the idle current in this thing, and the way you do that is you just measure the voltage across the two resistors here, the one that goes from the emitter of the positive transistor to the collector of the negative side transistor, and you just take the voltage measurement and divide it by the total resistance of the two resistors, which in this case is 1 ohm, which gives us the same millivolt reading as there is milliamps going through there, so it's very easy. But that's just in this case. Right here I'm grabbing the emitter off of the emitter pin of this transistor instead of grabbing on directly to the resistors, and the collector I'm grabbing from the back of the bolt here, which is the same as the collector in this thing. And after that you just adjust the trimmer pots for the correct current, and that's all there is to it. For this I found 15 milliamps to be ideal. So there it is after a bit of blend. You can see it still sort of stays floating at about 30 milliamps, but slowly it starts climbing back down. I think that's just because the diodes are separate from the heatsink, so they're not getting the heat from, you know, that's being generated here. And it takes a while for them to catch up, and even then there's like an overlap or an offset. I'm not gonna mess with that anymore. It seems fine. It climbs back down slowly. So I'm just gonna go with 15 milliamps. It seems to work pretty well. Originally I had it at 20 milliamps, but it floats a little bit higher once it's a little bit warmer, which was fine too. It never got really too hot or anything, but I just decided to go a little bit on the lower side. 15 milliamps is fine. It doesn't distort at lower volumes or anything like that. It's what I set it to when it's cold, so I basically just turn it on and let it settle down for a couple of minutes or more, and then I set it to 15. Once it warms up, it floats up, you know, like you saw there, and then it climbs back down, but it never goes like below 20 milliamps unless you like turn it off completely and let it settle down for a good while. No thermal runaway. It never goes out of control or anything. Seems to be working fine there. Oh, and the input cap here is tacked to the bottom of the board. in case you were wondering if there was something missing there. I don't have one with long enough leads